When we first learn to watercolor, we typically just follow what the teacher uses in terms of colors and how to mix them. However, as you start to paint what you like based on a photo or a scene in front of you, most of us will struggle in terms of deciding which colors to use and how to mix them. Now, the most common mistakes I see beginners make when choosing the colors to apply, they're really focused on having the color match exactly as seen in a photo. And then they will go and pick out the closest color they see in their fixed paint set. Doing so will not lead you to a stunning painting or a harmonic palette for your painting. And there are two reasons behind it. First, what creates a cohesive palette for a painting with a strong sense of mood and weather that is not dependent on the one-to-one color match between what you see and what you paint. It's actually more about having all the colors you use follow the exact same temperature, saturation, and brightness. This type of cohesion can only be achieved if you actually just pick and use a very small set of primary colors to begin with and only mix your own colors using this set of colors so that the mood and the tone for the painting will all fall into the same color family. And now if you're a beginner and you just got a 48 color set and you're just picking out the colors you want to use for specific areas of the painting, it's actually more likely that the colors you pick will follow into a different temperature or properties. So there is no guarantee that the colors will jive, and most likely they will not. When we try to match a paint color to a color we see in the photo, we tend to pick the bright colors. But the issue with the bright colors is that they don't have any black or browns added to them. And many people think that if you just make the mixtures thicker, they can go darker. However, that's not the case. You will actually need to add blacks or browns to these bright colors in order to reach the darker value. But if you do that, these colors tend to lose luminosity and brightness so quickly. So the darker tones of your painting, such as the shadows, will look really dull. Versus if you were to pick the muted primary colors, like yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and ultramarine blue, they can go much darker just by themselves because they already have browns and blacks added to them. And the luminosity will be preserved so that the shadows will look vivid and fresh. Another underlying principle that many beginners aren't aware when working with colors is that actually choosing what colors to use, that question matters way less as compared to which area has the highest contrast or how dark should the values be for different parts of the painting. Because what creates focal area is more often due to a high contrast in the values where the light meets the dark, and less so about what exact colors that you use. Even when you use a very bright color, it may not become the focal point because the surrounding values are very similar and may actually detract from the real focal area of your painting. This is a great example where initially when the students try to convert the black and white value study, which has beautiful forms and contrasts, into the color study and entirely lost the contrast because they were so focused on what colors to use for the grasses, the trees, and the buildings. In the new version, they're actually more focused on maintaining the same contrast, making sure the dark areas still stay dark while the light areas are sufficiently light. You will see that color actually is in a supporting role here to help merely suggesting what type of objects they are. The main idea here came through because the light and the dark tonal areas were kept intact. Okay. Now that we have understand why beginners tend to struggle with using color for their painting, next let's talk about what is the right method. And there is a way that I will highly recommend for all beginners to use, which will not only result in much more satisfying outcome, but also is much simpler than working with your 48 color paint set, okay? So let's dive in and take a look. I will take you guys through an example and I would explain to you as we go why this method really works and why there is no way you can screw up with this method. First, I want you to ditch all of the bright colors you have And right now, only start with 3 primary colors. And the primary colors you're going to use include only ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and a yellow ochre. Well, you may ask, what do I do with all of the beautiful bright colors then? So that actually comes in later, because if you start with bright colors, you're going to really lose focus as to where the real contrast is. You're going to get really confused by the color saturation and lose track of, again, the value of darkness, right? So now we're going to start first by only using these 3 primary colors that are actually muted. So all of these 3 colors are muted. They all lean towards warm, and they all have some amount of black and brown already mixed in, so that when you put them together, no longer at whatever ratio, they will still look very cohesive for your painting. And another beauty is that these colors can actually go much darker if you want, without having to add extra black or browns. Another precursor towards painting, a photo or a scene in front of you is doing a value study first. The reason is not really what you think, like, oh, study the design and composition. That is important, sure. But the real reason is that so you have a black and white version with super distinct forms of the black, the middle, and the light tone, so that you will not get confused. You use this as your roadmap for applying colors, not the other way around. Because if you start with thinking about the colors, not the tone, then you're gonna lose track again. You have to first think about the darkness of the tone as seen in your value study. You have to maintain the darkness of that area, while at the same time think about whether that area is a warm color or a cool color. Now that comes down to the third very important tip here, which is when you're applying colors, don't think in terms of what color that looks like on a photo, but instead whether that color is cool versus warm. When it's warm, use more burnt sienna. When it's cool, use more ultramarine blue. Yellow ochre can replace burnt sienna if you have greeneries, but for the rest of the painting, you can just do it with burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. The reason why you want to save the bright colors to the last, when you have done the painting with just the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna, maybe yellow ochre for certain greeneries, it should already have a really strong foundation in terms of the light, mid, and dark tone, and very strong focal area and contrast. So now the bright colors are there then to enhance, but not to detract all of the contrast you have just built up. What that means is that if an area is a light tone, you want to use a very light tea consistency, almost like a glaze on top of it, to maybe bring out a bit more vibrancy. But the key is not to alter the darkness of a specific shape on your painting. If you apply a thin and smooth wash, it will actually not look overworked at all, because the bottom layer have already dried up and they already have the right darkness. So all the bright color is there to change either the temperature or the saturation of a color. They're not going to mess with the contrast or the shapes you have painstakingly distilled down in your value study. So once you're able to use these 3 primary colors, plus the light colors as a glazing really well, then you can start introducing a few more colors to your palette, or maybe you can swap out certain colors from the 3 primary colors I recommended here based on the temperature, the weather, and the overall mood of your painting. Then you'll be more successful utilizing them in your work as well. So here for the sunny day sky, I first muted ultramarine blue by mixing in some alizarin crimson and burnt sienna. And then I added the modifying cerulean blue or manganese blue. That is a much more vibrant and cooler blue color. And around the horizon, this is where I also used a very subtle band of yellow color. You almost feel like the glow from like this morning sun. And before this yellow glow dries up, I have already mixed the green color using yellow ochre, burnt sienna, plus the cerulean blue color. So this greenery is brighter than in the color study, where we only used ultramarine blue with the 2 warm tones. So that is what I did. However, I still very lean heavily into using the burnt sienna and yellow ochre. So then now when I go in and add the shadow colors, which is mixed using ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, plus a bit of indigo blue. The indigo will darken the color significantly and cool it down quite a bit at the same time. So this is where this green will serve as a really good shadow color for these trees in the distance. Now, before everything dries in this water area, we're going to also add dimension. So here I use the same color mixture of the blue, which is ultramarine plus cerulean blue, but make it much thicker. And I also added a little bit of the indigo blue. Now for the reflection of the boats, the shadow part of the reflection, I added also the lavender color as a modifier, because that lavender color will brighten up that shadow color and will also warm it up just slightly. And so then that blue color is the further separated from the colors of the ripple. The one big fishing boat is actually green color. So simultaneously, you want to create a bit of color variance in these reflection as well. So roughly you can feel there is the green color reflection, and for the other boats it actually leans towards warmth. That's where you can also add burnt sienna into the shadow to warm it up. All there is left are the finishing touches, so we're just adding some accent color now, such as the green color for the fishing boat, and add a little bit of cadmium red for one of the red boats, and maybe some of the striping patterns of these smaller boats in the foreground. So yeah, this is how you can utilize these 3 primary colors, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, but add some modifier to modify the color properties of these 3 primary colors to enhance the mood and atmosphere of your painting. Now, if you're working through a painting based on your own photo and you run into issues, not knowing how to interpret, simplify, or build the right color palette for it, make sure to check out my deep dive courses through Patreon online program, where I'll be teaching the color mixing and a whole bunch of really important skills in watercolor in depth, things from mixture control, painting design, to expressive brushworks. So you can take these classes, but more importantly, get direct coaching feedback from me based on your artwork, your painting, and whatever vision you have, so that I can guide you throughout that process, help you learn these core skills in a way that's relevant and tangible for you. Go check it out or ask me any questions you have about it in the comment below. So if you're interested to learn the more advanced version of applying color with these different color modifiers and how to modify them, I have 2 resources. First is my color mixing chart and masterclass, where I actually shows you how to make color for a variety of subjects under a variety of weather or lighting conditions, utilizing the 3 primary colors of burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, but also utilizing secondary colors as a modifier to create more depth and convey stronger mood for your painting. The second resource is a full speed painting tutorial, taking you through the whole process of doing a value, converting it into color using the 3 primary colors I recommend with some modifiers. And this scene is also more beginner friendly and easy to follow if you would like to paint along. Check out the link to this tutorial here and in the description below. All right, there we have it. The most common mistakes beginners make when working with colors, and a foolproof method to use just primary colors to create cohesive palette for any painting subjects. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and let me know what you think And feel free to ask any questions you still have about it in the comment below. Again, appreciate you liking, commenting, and subscribing my videos, as well as supporting me through the Patreon online program. Alright then, I hope to see you guys soon in the next video. Bye!